And the last thing that I want to mention before I turn the microphone over to Michael Molina, who is going to moderate our discussion today. I had a wonderful interaction with Cindy Smith in the past last week, and Cindy's in the meeting. Cindy contacted the National Transportation Library to ask if we could supply a well-remediated report that was heavy on engineering type of visuals. And so we pulled one from our work process that week. And as I said to Cindy, it was acceptable, but I wouldn't put it in the well-remediated category. And I think in other conversations I've had in the past month, some of the things that are really hard for people, and I'm including myself in this because I remediate my own documents, I'm really intimidated by captioning my figures. And it's because I want to make sure that people can understand what I'm saying in the figure. And yet, not having a disability in itself disables me from understanding how I might interact with that content, not having really good visual perception. So that might be something that we want to talk about in a future meeting. I think we could definitely talk about best practices around captioning and come up with some examples. But in the meantime, one of the things that I ran by Cindy and Michael was it might be a good idea for us to create a small library of well-remediated documents that people can use as examples for how they might make a figure look, how a chart or a very nice table or a photo, and include the remediation plus the captioning. So I'm going to, after this meeting is done, probably tomorrow morning, I'll put out a message on the TranLib discussion list. And if anybody has a document that they're especially proud of, and you know that it's a really good example of how we can remediate a document, and you're okay with submitting that to me, I can put them up on our LibGuide and start to make a little collection of them so we can point people there so they can see how we're, what our best practices are. So again, I'll remind you tomorrow on TranLib, and any feedback you have for me about that would be great. So with that, we are recording the meeting. I see that Cindy has her hand up. So Cindy, I'm going to let you have the floor, and then you can pass the mic to Michael.
Okay, thanks, Mary. I won't be long. I just wanted to emphasize we're looking for, I understand the basics of 508, but we have like a pavement materials, very heavy study. It's got reams and reams and reams of data and graphs and charts and spreadsheets and statistics and all that, and because we have a lot of those types of things. So if anybody's got any examples of those, that's really kind of what I was going for. I get the basics if you have a photo, and I was trying to explain to one of my, I'm an engineer as well, I was trying to explain to one, I'm like, he said he was about the auxiliary text or whatever. I was like, you don't have to, it's not like somebody asks you what time it is and you tell them how to build a watch. It's just like a sentence or two. And so we're going to have to get our heads around concepts like that. So anyway, sorry, I've said enough. On to Michael.
No, Cindy, I think this is actually a great point too, and maybe we can share some best practices with that, either this meeting or next meeting. I think, speaking from our vantage point in Oklahoma, what we generally do, we try to get alt text or caption to get the general gist, like the key takeaway, like what's the main idea behind this figure that you want to convey, and then we have that replicated in the alt text. Or we say, for more information on this figure, see paragraph so-and-so on page so-and-so, for a description of this figure. That way it's not all in the alt text. So I don't know if that kind of gets to the question, or because I know some of those graphs can be very detailed. So
Well, it isn't just the alt text, it's the graph itself. You know, some of those charts, they don't want you to merge and center, and there's a bunch of other things and colors you shouldn't use, and you got to use the triangles, and if you got like a plot of an X, there's all kind of things, but that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, just heavy technical stuff.
would you want to share this document with the group for the next meeting? Like we could get a bunch of eyes on it and just get a bunch of different perspectives, and like would you be open to that? Not to put you on the spot.
I mean, to share, which document?
Like if there's a document you have in mind that has these questions that are coming up, like we could all just take a look at it and see, how everybody remediates that.
Um, I just like one of our research reports is that.
Sure, if there's something that has like specific questions that are being raised, I mean, I think as a group we could take a look at it. Or if you'd prefer, we could all come up with, things that might answer some of those questions and present those to you as well. Like whatever
It might
works
be
best.
better to the latter, because if I hit you with one of ours, y'all might be like, God, this is gonna take me, 5 days or something. Because they're kind of asking me, the consultants are asking me, well, okay, well, what do you do? I said, well, like, you use your word accessibility checker, and it anyway. That's about my only requirement, because I don't really know what else to tell them. I've got some guidance and from HHS and NTL and other things in our manual, but I'm just, any examples of repository or otherwise that somebody's already done this, I'm sure, with materials heavy studies. But anyway, that's it.
That sounds good. I'll see if I can find some examples for mine, and if anyone else has any examples they'd like to share for the next meeting, I think that would be fantastic. And honestly, I think as we start sharing more reports and questions and ideas, we're going to find we're all kind of in the same boat, because goodness knows we have a lot of reports in Oklahoma that raise a lot of questions, and we may not be sure if this quite fits or if this, we're remediating this okay. And luckily we have Mary and the NTL team to say, is this accessible or isn't it? Doesn't it meet the standard? So I think we're going to learn a lot from each other in sharing and creating this document library going forward. So yeah, please, Cindy, keep the questions coming. So I think we always learn best from sharing with each other. So this is great. So looking quickly at the agenda that Mary shared before the meeting, we have user experiences with Common Look, as well as tips and tricks. And then the last item on the agenda was the proposal for a remediation library. I guess we'll go ahead and start off with Common Look. As some of you may know, Common Look is a remediation tool for PDFs that many folks have used. I know Enid White in Wyoming is a big proponent of Common Look. I believe she uses it, out at their state DOT. And correct me if I'm wrong, Michael from Texas, doesn't Texas use Common Look in their remediation?
We have a subscription for we have a license for Common Look that our editor uses. So that's something that before Kevin left, she purchased it, and then we worked it into our library contract. We try to use it. The editor is out with a brand new baby, so she is unable to attend, but she uses it a great deal. And then I use just whatever comes with Adobe Acrobat. And she and I have found that the two can be vastly different in the types of errors that they count, that they don't count. I do know that I think she's able to correct things a little bit more quickly than I can. But yeah, that's a continuing cost for us. We're gonna have Common Look for as long as TxDOT will allow us to buy it.
Okay. Yeah, I know through the pooled fund, we're looking at buying subscriptions for members. We have a meeting set up tomorrow with someone to talk about that. So if we can take that burden off of Texas as far as paying for that, then I think the pooled fund should be able to. But as far as how helpful that is, let me go ahead and share my screen very quickly here. Hopefully everyone can see this page. And again, I'm not a salesperson for Common Look or anything like that, so we're just kind of reviewing the pros and cons of it. It seems that they have rebranded themselves a little bit. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it right. Like Common Look has become, is it Alliant? Alliant? I'm not quite sure how they pronounce it yet, but they're rebranding themselves as this new organization. And one of the things that they offer on their website, if you don't want to pay the subscription price for it, which I believe is around $700 per user, so that can definitely add up if you have multiple users, they have what they call a validator. It's free. You can get a free validator that plugs into your Adobe PDF. For example, let me go ahead and open up an example of one of our items here. Once you download that plugin, it's going to show up in the PDF example, and you can see it shows Common Look right here. And you can click on the validator and you can keep updating the program as you wish. And so theoretically, the validator, when you click on it, is going to run through and check all of the issues that you have with this PDF document. Now, unfortunately, I was going to do a demo of that today, but for some reason, when I click on that, you're going to see what happens in the moment. It crashes my PDF. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. But if you would like to check out this tool, you can go to this website. Just go to allyant.com and you can do a search for the validator and you can download a free copy and hopefully have a little bit better luck with it than I did. As far as the other solutions that they have, Common Look PDF, for example, it's supposed to be a lot more in-depth than the validator. It's going to actually give you the tools necessary to remediate the document, and you can see the price points right there. So I'm going to be talking with one of their representatives tomorrow to see if we can get like a free trial for the full suite of programs and see how we can use that with our documents. But in the meantime, does anyone else use this program or does anyone have any experiences? Does this make it easier rather than going through Adobe PDF, or does anyone have any experiences they want to share about this program?
This is the first time I've ever heard of it, so I don't have anything.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder, it might be worthwhile. I'm going to go ahead and post a link into the chat for the free validator. Let me see. And then if anyone wants to download that and try it out to see what errors that it brings up in their own PDFs, that may be a good topic for us to revisit. And hopefully I can talk to Enid as well and see what some of her experiences were with Common Look. I know we have a consulting group, CTC and Associates, who uses Common Look for their remediation, and they say it seems to help things go a little bit quicker. Yes, Michael.
Okay, for anyone who is unfamiliar with Common Look, if you do download the widget and it does a check on your document, don't be alarmed if it returns multiple thousands of errors. Because if your document is big enough and it has enough things going on, it may come back with a number that is just heartbreaking. In some cases, it's double and triple counting things. So just be aware of that. It can look horrendous, but it may not be the case.
So, Michael, if you fix one item, like if it's counting something like 3 times, if you fix that one item, it removes those 3 counts, correct?
I'd have to ask the CTR editor to be more specific, but I think that is something that she and I have discussed. I know that, and this is maybe getting into the weeds a little bit too much. I know that oftentimes she will reconstruct entirely the table of contents, and that seems to fix a vast amount of issues, especially with unmarked annotations. If people linked the different parts of the table of contents to the respective pages, and that will fix a lot of problems all at once. And I do think there are ways that when like in Adobe, um, anything like you can pull up everything that doesn't have alt text and then you can move through them one by one. I think Common Look does the same thing.
I mean, this
Yeah.
sounds like a pretty good program, so I think we're
Yeah.
definitely going to try it out.
And it's, it is, it's just, I was going to say unfortunate, but it's just a characteristic of the type of reports that a DOT is going to produce. If it's highly technical with graphs and charts, there can be a lot of a lot of pain points. And it's, it's just part of the type of work that's being produced.
Yeah. I know, especially for ours, whenever we have like several tables or anything, like there's usually something wrong with the tables that we have to fix. And oftentimes we have to go back to the Word document to fix the Word before we can convert to the PDF. But it sounds like this program might let you fix things already in the PDF, which would save a lot of time. So I think that's fairly exciting. Well, moving on, if we don't have any more comments or questions about Common Look, I think by the next meeting we might have a little bit more information, and maybe we can have Enid online as well that can share some of her experiences. And if people have had a chance to look at that validator to see if that's actually helpful, then that might be good to share some of those experiences. But moving on to the next item, kind of tips and tricks, and I guess if there's any issues that anyone is having with remediation or 508 compliance, or even where to start at your organization, I think this would be a good opportunity to share that with the group. No matter what level you're coming at it from, if you're just brand new and don't know anything about it or need some advanced help, I think this is the community to present those issues to. So yeah, I think the floor, I'll throw the mic open to everyone. If anyone wants to raise their hand and just bring up any issue or any question you may have about Section 508, we can see what we can do about it. And please don't be shy.
I'm just envious of other DOTs that have editors and librarians and things like that. I keep hoping and talking to our state library commission and the library school and just really not getting anywhere with all that. So
Hmm. That's an interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm hoping to join the pooled fund, but I mentioned it to my boss a couple of weeks ago, and he was kind of like, I said it includes Astro rack travel for two of us, and he was like, "Well, what it's my research funds, and I think it's 25,000 a year, dude." Anyway, that's another conversation. But I'm gonna take another run at it, and um, hopefully I can join that.
If you need any help in, if they want to talk or just have an informal visit or any extra information you need, please let me know. I'll be happy to intercede any way I can.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. But that is a great point, though, about having an editor and the full staff to be able to do that. Michael, I hope you don't mind me picking on you a little bit, but as far as that editor, like, are they the ones responsible for remediating all the documents, like, or what all do they do as editor?
So the library contract specifically states that the editor, she's on the library contract for maybe 20%, 20 to 30% of her time. So she's working with the center itself, and then she's also a part of the TxDOT research program. And the idea in a perfect scenario, the document gets to her and it's already ready to go. And as many of you can probably guess, that doesn't happen often. We're getting better, but we still have it's not really a uniform process because our contract stipulates that we are open to help any university across the state of Texas that is participating in the TxDOT research program. And this could be the big ones, University of Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech. It can be some of the smaller schools. And our editor, once the document is approved for publication by TxDOT, we'll send out an email to the research team saying that the CTR editor can help with light editing, but they need to, the goal is for them to be doing the remediation because they're the experts.
Mhm.
And if they have been doing remediation from the start, like you said, with the Word document, hopefully when it gets to us, it's just light touches. So our contract, I think it precludes the idea of the editor being responsible for every single issue that an electronic document can have, because it's just not feasible for one person to be able to do that type of work. And we've had reports get delayed for over a year because there were 500, 600 images, but when we got it worked.
Wow.
Yeah, this is something like I spoke with Mary about this. Um, this is something that I think we need to, from with the funding agency, is to, when we have something called a university handbook that dictates to all the universities, this is how the research process goes from point A to point finish. And I feel like we can do a better job explicitly stating who is responsible for what. And then instead of saying something like accessibility concerns, take that phrase and break it down into extremely granular steps so that they can see what it is and they can just move through and do their checklist to make sure that it works. We had a report here at CTR that was dealing with ports in Texas, and some of the alt text for the images were literal paragraphs. But the
Hmm.
research team did that and they felt it was appropriate. God bless them. But that is a lot of work. And in some cases, alt text is the biggest problem that we have for our editors. And if we can just get the research team, maybe not even to insert it themselves, but give us maybe a Word document, figure 1, this is the alt text, figure 2, this is the alt text, then we can go in, if it's not too onerous, and just copy paste and drop that in as we move through it from start to finish. It's one thing to consider though, is when I started here in 2016, and actually this month represents 7 years. And from where we were to where we are now, the improvement and the participation, it is light years better than it was. And it's still going to take time. It's something that people, it's an afterthought sometimes, because as Mary said, if you can read your own report, it's just not something you think about until you start making it a habit of thinking about it. And some of the reports that we get are gorgeous, completely remediated, start to finish, and other ones need a little bit of help. And that's where we have to have that communication with our stakeholders.
Cindy, you had your hand up.
Sorry, I'm not, some other people, please chime in, but Michael Nugent, you're with the university, or are you with the DOT, or
We
you have a
we're
partnership?
yeah,
Mhm.
we kind of operate in the middle ground. So
Okay.
I am technically a University of Texas employee, but my library is funded completely through the Department of Transportation through what's known as an interagency contract.
Okay.
And we feel that this is beneficial for the DOT because as a university employee, I can lean on some of the resources that the university can bring to bear with respect to libraries and information sciences and just availability of resources. So we have a contract. Right now we're at 2 full-time employees, and then our editor is roughly 20%, and then we have a project manager who's on it for a little bit, and we just kind of waddle our way through.
Yeah, I wonder what, it sounds like the universities have a lot more knowledge of it than, say, because we do research with the universities and we also do it with private consultants, and they're going to be the ones that, you know, are, I don't know, probably not going to take it as well, shall we say. But I mean, whether they can put it in their cost or whatever. I mean, whether it's a university or consultant, it's going to cost so many hours more, and that's, I think we'll be fine paying that, but I was just wondering, does anybody here have the consultant perspective, or is it different than the university? Just curious.
I think this is a good question and a great conversation to be having as far as how do agencies structure these kinds of services. I think I'm in Michael's boat as well. Our DOT contracts through a university for library services, and so we provide the ADA remediation. And right now it's myself and another full-time librarian who provide these services. But and our DOT has found that works fairly well because it takes the onus off of them. And in their contract language, they say, you know, the PI, the university, they're responsible for getting it ADA Section 508 compliant, not us. And so it's shifted a little bit onto the university and the PI. So yeah, to Cindy's question, how does everybody else do it? Does anyone do consultants or bring in outside folks, or even if it's the same or different, you know, please raise your hand and let us know. How does your agency deal with this?
I'm all ears.
I can talk a little bit about what is going on at U.S. Department of Transportation, but I know that this is really different than what happens at the state level. When we started out in 2018, requiring, I'm just talking about U.S. DOT publications now. We in 2018, we started requiring that the different modal research organizations like FAA, FHWA, NHTSA, what have you, that all the different modes that create research reports, that they would have to make them 508 compliant. It was very shocking for everyone at USDOT that we had to do this. It was a big burden on the library. We were kind of caught by surprise. We missed the announcement about the from GSA about the ICT refresh that said that we had to make all of our content 508 accessible that was published after March 2018. So we kind of scrambled a little bit. And we did help people. The librarians at NTL did a lot of the remediation that year on the reports that were submitted. We have an annual report, the Transportation Statistical Annual Report that we call the TSAR. It's currently featured on the front page of the Rosa P., our repository. And the other thing that we always have to do at the end of the year is the Pocket Guide to Transportation. And you may be familiar with these publications. We used to hand them out at the TRB meetings, and I would take them to other meetings that I would go to. These are full of charts, graphs, sophisticated visuals, and then, you know, there's formatting and such as well. So that first year was really very difficult for us. Now, I have we have a really good relationship with most of our modal research groups at DOT. So one of the things that I started to do was go out and talk to the folks that like pretty much like every group has a person who manages the submissions and the communication with NTL. It's similar to my relationship with the state DOTs. So myself and one of the catalogers, we started to go and meet with the different modes. We met with NHTSA, we met with FHWA, and we talked to them about it wasn't enough to wait until the end of the research process and the end of writing your report to then consider making it 508 accessible. That it was really important, and this that we make this part of the work process in creating this product. So we had actually, I think we had pretty good response to that. I would say that it's always more challenging to be a prophet in your own land. And some of our colleagues in Bureau of Transportation Statistics, of which we are a part, and we sat next to them. So they were very unhappy about the whole thing. We had actually people crying that year. At the end of the year, we had deadlines. We had to publish these things by a deadline because they're annual reports to Congress. So that first year did not go very well. But what we did was we started to have a lot of meetings with our specific colleagues in BTS too. And we put together documentation. You can see some of it on the 508 Accessibility LibGuide. That checklist, you can print that off on a double-sided, it's a PDF that I made with 2 other people in my organization that we recommend to our authors that they use this. So just to get back to, like, at the beginning, Michael was talking about preparing for figures and for the alt text. And one of the things that we taught our researchers to do was to strategically place that figure in the text so that you can refer to it in the alt text. And I think that that little thing in getting people to write the alt text was really radical for, like, it made a lot of improvements over our submissions. And it remains really challenging to continue to push this with our immediate colleagues in our organization. I think it's because we're embedded in this group that we're so familiar to these folks that they can push back on what we're asking for and complain and those kinds of things. But we do help our colleagues with the remediation on our reports that go out to the public. But I would say that most of the work is done. The researchers get the beginning of it. Now, what happened is we could not remediate all of these reports at the end of the year because we also have to catalog your submissions, and we're a very tiny organization. So what we started to recommend to people after 2018, when we had our engagements with our DOT researchers, is that they hire contractors who are part of the editorial process, just like Michael Nugent was explaining, that they remediate, they're professionals, they're trained, they know how to use the software, that they would that we would have our DOT colleagues start to write this into their contracts, that the folks who would help, contractors who would help with the editorial process would also be skilled in 508 remediation and making documents accessible. So I think that that has had a really big impact on the quality of our submissions. But I can't stress this enough. It's an ongoing conversation. I don't anticipate that, at least in the next few years, that this is just something that people can run with on their own. We still have training wheels on, this whole process within DOT. But I think we've made a lot of progress, and I think we've had some good feedback. So we just continue to try to be strong and keep the effort going. So that's kind of what's going on with us.
That is a fantastic tip. Next level tip, I'd say, about mentioning it in the paragraph so you can have your alt text reference it. Honestly, that's kind of a game changer because if a PI doesn't have to write alt text and can just say see previous paragraph or something, like that is, I don't know, that feels like a mental weight lifted off. So it sounds like that's reaping a lot of great rewards. So fantastic tip. I think that's why we come here.
The people who write the reports are the experts. And it's just once it gets to the librarians, we're not engineers. We didn't do the studies. We didn't collect and analyze the data. So Michael, I can't emphasize this enough. This has been a win for us, even though we still need to do some remediation. This was the hard one.
Perfect. Thank you. We have, I think, Robin Russell, and then Cindy, and then Michael.
Hey, so one of the issues that we're having here is nobody has any idea what 508 compliance even means. So my first question is this strictly research? Does it take place anywhere else within y'all's departments? EEO, HR, public involvement, anywhere else within y'all's departments? Because no one here knows anything.
I think for us, for Oklahoma, like anything public facing, anything forward facing from websites and research reports, like anything put out by the government has to be Section 508 compliant for us. Research reports, websites, anything. So I can let others speak to that. Cindy, you were nodding your head. Are you kind of in the similar situation, or?
Well, I don't know if our website is. I know we're all supposed to be, but I'm I'm an engineer in charge of the research division, Robin. So I feel your pain. I'm in the research world and trying to get my arms around it, but I've got a lot of different people to convince here. But my question was back to your. I just want to clarify. So you don't have to put alt text at all. You can just say, or do you put the alt text and say see paragraph whatever? Is that what I'm hearing for that? That you and Mary were talking about. You just put the alt text and say, see paragraph, whatever on page, whatever. Okay, all right.
In the past, we've done that. Pardon me if I'm misrepresenting Mary, but I know
Okay.
we've tried to do that as well, encourage people to do that.
Okay, well, that'll help matters because engineers want to, like you said, the research and engineer people want to write a book and we don't need to do that.
Yeah. Let me go back to Robin real quickly to carry on that thread. Robin, you mentioned you're new to Section 508. I think this is a perfect group to get involved in to learn more about that. And I think even one-on-one or any questions you may have about setting up your own Section 508 or what even all is involved, or even what we mean by alt text. Like if, like I didn't know what alt text was. So please, if you have any clarifying questions you'd like to ask this group, or even if you want to schedule anything outside of this group, I think let us know and we'd be more than happy to help facilitate that.
I greatly appreciate that. I am not so much new to it. I'm a little bit more familiar with it. What happened was whenever all this came up, I'm guessing closer to 2018, our research engineer went to RAC and she came back and she said, okay, Robin, become an expert on 508 compliance. I said, what? So I've been studying about it for quite some time, trying to figure it out, getting it into our contract so that it can start with the author of the reports. Because I most certainly am not an engineer, don't understand any of that. And then just trying to figure out how to get it implemented here. So
Where are you, Robin? Which DOT are you with?
Cindy, I'm scared to tell you because my boss just said hopefully no one rats us out to the feds. But
It just sounded like we may be neighbors by your accent. It's okay.
I'm in Arkansas.
Okay.
So
We are neighbors.
you're in Mississippi, aren't you?
That's correct.
Yeah. So
Well, don't feel bad. We're all trying to get our hands around it.
I know. And I keep reaching out around here. It was suggested to us to just start with our newsletter, but PI is involved in creating our newsletter, putting it together. So I need them involved, and they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Alicia's
So
gone anyway, so you don't have to worry about her getting all over you, so.
but she's the one that she was bad about coming
I-
back and she said, okay,
know.
become an expert about this. And I'm just, oh my goodness. But yeah,
Yeah, I know her very well. She's a force of nature for sure.
oh yeah. So, but I mean, it's just been one thing after another. And then, I think last time it was mentioned something about the formulas.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. I said something about that just back to the newsletter. There was a few very complex formulas, equations and stuff in one of the articles. I said, okay, y'all, this is what they suggested doing. And everybody's like, no, I don't think I'd know how to, I don't even know how to read that. I don't know how to read that, so I don't know how to put alt text in.
Robin, if you
That's
want to talk offline, we have some basic stuff in Mississippi. It's
Mhm.
these people here are better brains than I am, but I have at least made the attempt to start. But anyway,
I said, I don't know unless you just say two over this, over that, and then parentheses. I have no idea. So, but it was just kind of, yeah, we'll think about it. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
It's hard without concrete examples. So Mary posted, no shame, we're all in this together. I agree 100%. And I'm going to echo Cindy too. If you want to reach out on offline, after the meeting, I'm going to put my email in the chat box. And if you want to reach out or anything, that'll be
But yeah,
good.
well, I invited my entire section to this meeting. I see a couple of them in here. So maybe as we go on, you'll see more of our SR people in here and we'll all figure it out together.
Perfect. That sounds good. Michael, you've had your hand up for a little bit.
Robin, I completely understand from where you're coming. What you're describing is exactly what we have been going through. I mean, it's almost it's stunning the similarities between what you're experiencing and what we're experiencing. The one of the very first issues was simply what is it? And from where is this coming? Why are we doing this? What are we doing? And the amount of cajoling and just educating it's an, and as you know Mary's talked about, it's an ongoing process within the state of Texas. I do believe that anything public facing for the DOT and for basically every state institution needs to be 508 accessible to the best of its ability. And I think this also uh, covers some DOT internal documents, things that are not public facing but still need to be accessible to all of the employees, maybe a survey or a form, something with HR, but that's not distributed publicly. So there are lists of documents that I think the United States says that even if it's internal, it still has to be accessible. And then, yeah, with figures or equations, I know that can be an absolute beast. Michael Molina did a section on that in the past. If you just take a screenshot of it, turn it into a figure, and then describe it as best you can. And what you just said about spelling out it's this over this parentheses, that can literally work. Where it's going to look weird, it's going to sound weird, but it's going to get the point across. Especially if it's a complex equation. I would like to go back to something that both Mary and Michael have talked about, and that is using alt text to refer to this paragraph. How close does the paragraph need to be to the figure? And when we think about reading order, so if the reader is moving through the page and it hits that paragraph, so XYZ, and then it hits the figure, is it going to have to bounce back up to the paragraph, or does a person who is more familiar with the screen reader, will they be able to move themselves back up to it? Because again, as somebody who can see, I don't I have so little experience with screen readers. I'm just not 100% sure how navigable that's going to be for somebody, especially if it's a figure that was described 5, 10, 15 pages earlier for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's a great question. For that, for Oklahoma DOT, we usually say if it's within, usually the paragraphs describing the figure are pretty close to each other. And so we'll say, please see the previous paragraph, or for more information, please see the next paragraph. If it's a little ways away, we'll say, please see the first full paragraph on page 45 or something like that. So be as accurate as you can and as specific as you can if you need to be. As far as the screen readers, I know it depends on the screen reader, but usually folks have control over where they are in the screen reader process. And so if they read the figure description and then it says, please go back to page whatever, they have that control and capability to go do that. So, Mary, have you had any different experiences with that or any different advice?
No, that's what we're doing. I'm actually looking for a report right now where I can show this.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's a good question. And I guess as a transition a little bit, this is a good transition into the research report library that we're talking about building. And maybe we can all have a conversation of how we'd like that to look. For example, organizing these sample reports that are good at remediation. I don't know, Mary, what do you think about organizing it by topic? Like you mentioned earlier, not all reports, have to be perfect. They just have to show an element. Like what if we organized it like these are good reports for alt text. These are good reports for charts and graphs or tables or something like that. That way one doesn't have to be everything to everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right. I'm wondering, are we thinking like doing a libguide of sorts on the NTO website and constructing that? And as far as sourcing reports, do we want to send out an email to like on TranLib, or do we just want to work amongst this working group ourselves and solicit, or how would we like to see that go forward?
Well, I can save the list of attendees from this meeting, and I'll do that as soon as I stop talking. And I can contact everybody who's been in the meeting. Um, but I don't think it would hurt to put that out on TranLib. We might get some folks who have interest in this and will participate and submit their documents. So I never want to exclude anybody. So I can take care of that. I was thinking we do have a spot in the LibGuides for 508 accessibility, and we put the link in there from the last meeting to the archived webinar. For those of you who don't know, where I'm last the 2 months ago when we had our last meeting, I sent the file for the recording of this meeting to Michael, and he uploaded it to his YouTube channel, and it worked, and it's great. So he put the link, or I put the link to it in our 508 LibGuide. So I think we can expand that guide, and I'll figure out how to do it appropriately so you can find things. But I think that would be a good place for that. We don't have a lot of content for 508 outside of the accessibility guide. And that's another place where we could potentially put it as a page in the accessibility guide. I mean, those things can just be copied from one guide to the other. Maybe a couple of different places where that could go. That's what I've been thinking about.
That sounds great. Let's see, Robin posted in the chat, have an entire section on OneNote dedicated to links and resources and samples of accessibility. That sounds fantastic. Cindy mentions our documentation was done by CTC. They're usually really thorough in their accessibility, so that's great. Cindy.
Yeah, and I sent it to you and Mary, so if I can drop it in the chat, if you got it and want to drop it in the chat, anybody can go, I can put a link to our website, and it's under there anyway, under manuals and tools, so
Oh, perfect.
feel free to plagiarize still. We aren't really having a lot of teeth with it. We're kind of laying the groundwork. I actually held my breath when they passed this latest appropriation because somehow SPNR has been sort of given a pass, but I'm still trying to do that. I'm also getting with them about data management plans, which is a whole other ball of wax, but it's just really hard when you don't have librarian or editors or that kind of staff, and we're putting the monkey on consultants and professors' backs, and they're like Robin saying, what is this even? What is it even? So anyway, but we got good documentation. We're just, the teeth aren't really there yet. So.
Perfect. And Robin posted, I'm making arguments for accessibility for that. Perfect. That sounds good. I think it's so hard for people who are outside to wrap their heads around what it even means or why it's important. So I think these kinds of examples will go a long way. And oh yeah, Chin, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I work at MnDOT, and we have research reports done for this accessibility by the University of Minnesota Center for Transportation Studies. They have a contract that they do our reports. So they take care of that part, and we also have a IT department that does have accessibility resources. So I haven't done anything about it, but I'm just here to learn. So, I know what I can if needed, Thank you for all your help.
Cindy mentions she's jealous of MnDOT, and that
So
that
jealous.
is that is fantastic to have those resources. Like, how long have you been contracting with the university for those services, or when did your agency think it was like they wanted to invest in this?
We have a close relationship with CTS. Like we also, our library has a partnership with them, so we have a part-time staff member who works part-time at CTS, part-time at the library. And then our research, we are part of the research office, and the research side, they have master contract with, University of Minnesota. So they does a lot of research for us. And then they also, do part of the research reports for us, I think.
That is fantastic that you have that resource. And Cindy mentions she may steal that idea. I'm not sure if any Mississippi universities know much about it. Honestly, if I were to gamble, I would think the universities might know the most about it of any
Yeah.
organization. So like that would probably be a prime place to check out, like your flagship university, and see what they say. Like they've got to have a program, I would think.
Yeah, University of Southern Mississippi, who doesn't have an engineering school and isn't on the current master, but could possibly be added or something. They have the library school, only library school that I know of in the state. So they've got to have somebody down there. But yeah, that's a definite possibility.
That's honestly, that would be a good recipe. Like if you're looking to start, 508 remediation at your agency, maybe reach out to your university partners. I think they're always willing to talk, at least to see if a partnership is available and what resources you can at least borrow, even if it's like they have a web page or they have documentation or something, a program. Like there's always someone who'd like to, share resources about that. So that's great.
Yeah.
I think we got about, looks like 5 minutes left. I think wrapping things up a bit of housekeeping. Again, this meeting will be posted online and everyone can view that, or if you want to disseminate amongst your people or staff, please feel free. As far as the next meeting, I think we'll work on getting this library put together, or the beginnings of it. And maybe if we have some reports, we can go over and review on, here's a good example of this, or here's a good example of that. That might be helpful. Also, if we want to touch back on Common Look and explore more about that, we might have more information at that time. And we also mentioned looking at captions and alt text for the next meeting as well. So I think those are 3 solid agenda items that we can get through for next time. As far as the schedule, Mary, do we know what date we're meeting next, or do we want to figure that out right now?
I have all of the meetings scheduled
Oh,
for the rest of
perfect.
the
Okay.
year.
Oh, good.
So I can tell you in one moment here. Tuesday, April 11th.
Perfect. That
Same
sounds
time,
good.
same bat time, same bat channel.
Sounds like a plan. All right, I think we're gonna have a lot of good content next meeting. So we got 3 minutes left. Does anyone have any last minute questions or just want to throw anything out there at the last minute? You know, if not, I know no one ever wants to be that person. So I think we can give you 3 minutes back and change. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening. And thanks everyone. It is because of your efforts that this is a success and, you know, through collaboration. So thanks to everyone and look forward to seeing everybody in April.
All right, thanks, y'all.
Appreciate
ya.
y'all.
Thank you, everybody.